Iowa State is already dominating the Big 12, and the season hasn't even started yet. Find out why the defense could be the strong suit for Iowa State this upcoming season today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are breaking down some of Iowa State's standout players in the preseason Big 12 awards. First, we'll talk about them, and obviously, they're on the defensive side of the ball, as I kind of alluded to, and what that means for the team as a whole for this season. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some rivalries. It's going to be exciting. Can't wait to dive into that, as The Athletic did a very comprehensive rivalry analysis, and I was pretty shocked by those results. And then finally, we're going to do a little bit of a hodgepodge in the final segment, talking about Matt Campbell, talking about some coaching rankings, talking about some Big 12 rankings as a whole. A lot coming out right now ahead of the Big 12 Media Days. It's going to be a very exciting time. Now, before we get into things, I'd like to first off apologize for going full-blown analysis, real news reporter to start this episode. I mean, I busted out laughing there right after I said it. Just the way that the information was in front of me, it just really lent itself to being conveyed in that fashion. It's not really who I am. Nonetheless, let's talk about it. So the media, I did not get a part of this, so I'm not really sure what that's about. But the media voted on the preseason all-conference team, and Iowa State had a couple of dogs on that list, and so we're going to have to talk about it. Now, I will say I was a little shocked, not super shocked per se, but a little shocked to see Iowa State didn't get anybody on the offensive side of the ball. These media votes, as they stand right now, have Sam Leavitt as the offensive player of the year, Jacob Rodriguez, a linebacker from Texas Tech, as the defensive player of the year, and then the QB at Utah, Devin Dampier, as the newcomer of the year. Then obviously those are like their awards or whatever. So then the all-conference team, you've got Sam Leavitt at quarterback, Bryson Washington from Baylor at running back, Jaheim White, running back from West Virginia, Will Swanson, Kansas State, the fullback or H-back, if you will. And then the wide receivers, Eric McAllister, TCU, Chase Roberts, BYU, and Jordan Tyson, Arizona State. Jordan Tyson does not shock me at all that he is unbelievable at football. Joe Royer, the tight end from Cincinnati. Feel like we could have maybe gotten a tight end on this list, maybe a running back. Nonetheless, I'm not like completely arguing the offensive side of the ball here. A bunch of linemen, Ben Coleman, Sensor Fano, Bryce Foster, Caleb Lomu, and Jordan Seaton. From Arizona State, Utah, Kansas, Utah, and Colorado, respectively. If I went too fast there, it's you can find this anywhere online, basically. I just don't know how many people know those linemen off the top of their head. Will Farron, the place kicker from BYU, and then Josh Cameron, kind of the punt returner, kick returner from Baylor. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, we're not talking about the offense because Iowa State didn't make any guys, on that offensive side of the ball. However, Iowa State did show up on the defensive side of the ball. Some are saying that this is actually an Iowa State team with some other teams subbed in, basically, to fill out this all-conference team. At defensive lineman, you've got David Bailey, Dante Corleone, CJ Fight from Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and Arizona State, and then Lee Hunter from Texas Tech are your top four defensive linemen, or at least listed in that fashion on this tweet I'm reading. But Dominique Orange coming in as that final defensive lineman, Big Citrus from Iowa State. Super exciting. Well, we'll get more into that in a second. I'd like to finish out this roster. Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech, Austin Romaine from Kansas State, and Keaton Thomas from Baylor, your linebackers on this team. Then in the secondary, we've got Xavier Alford from Arizona State, Bud Clark, TCU, awesome name. Then you've got DJ McKinney from Colorado, and Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams from where else but Ames, Iowa. Iowa State, Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams. Then they've also got Palmer Williams, the punter from Baylor, on this list. Now, kind of interesting. He's listed on our defense. I guess that kind of makes sense, although they have the ball when the punters have the ball, they're kind of on offense because it's technically like fourth down. Usually they have the ball, but they're kind of playing defense with the field position game. Nonetheless, let's not get into that. It's really not what we're talking about right now. We got 3 dudes on the defensive side of the ball making the all conference team. And, I think the way I'm looking at this is it's just that I'm looking at Iowa State from a very optimistic perspective, not so much from a proven perspective. I mean, Sam Levitt probably slightly better than Rocco Becht, at least as of right now. I don't know necessarily if Sam Levitt has the same ceiling that Rocco Becht has, but as far as from what we've seen, I'm not too upset about Rocco not making that list. At the running back position, I think Carson Hansen could have made this list. Didn't. It's okay. I'm not going to argue tooth and nail on that one. I definitely think Bramer or potentially even Burkle could have a shot at the tight end position, but definitely by the end of the year, I think that they will very much be in that conversation. I'm not going to argue the offensive side of line of the ball too much, just because I think in general Iowa State's a little bit less proven on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defensive side, clearly everyone's a fan of what Iowa State has to offer. Dom Orange had a very good last year, just obviously not quite up to his standard. The reason he's coming back, wanted to get more good tape out there for the pros, and also said, hey, I left some on the table. I got stuff left to prove. And so very excited about what he'll do this year. I am very optimistic about the jump in, level of play we could see from Dom Orange. I think he's very much ready for it. I hope we get those questions asked and answered at Media Days, as he will be down there. But he's a force. He's a force to be reckoned with for sure. And so I'm very pleased to see him on this list. And then you see Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams, 2 guys that I pointed out as could be very key, players in the secondary. Leader in Jeremiah Williams, Jeremiah Cooper, probably I think he's the oldest guy in the secondary as a senior. Kind of that leader in that respect. The secondary for Iowa State could be very good this year. And I think if anything, my biggest takeaway from this list is that Iowa State's defense is going to be remarkable this year. Like genuinely very, very good. Just based literally only on this media poll and then everything that I've read, consumed, thought about, talked with other people about. So basically my entire brain, I think that Iowa State's defense could be really good. Also existing football knowledge, because Iowa State's returning so many linebackers and they're going to have the wicked amount of depth due to the guys that are coming back from last year that played, due to other guys having been injured, right? You got more reps under your belt. So you're going to have these top end players returning from injury and the depth from guys that played last year when they normally might not have. Then you're going to see, I think, a boost in defensive line play. I know Tomatoa McDonough isn't exactly talked about a whole lot from Yale, but I really think this guy could make a big difference. And if Dom Orange makes the jump that we kind of think he could, that I think a lot of people are hoping for, we're going to see more pressures on the quarterback and obviously more stuffing of the run game. So that's going to help in all respects. And then that only translates well to the secondary, where I think that's probably my biggest question mark for Iowa State. But that doesn't mean that there aren't dogs out there. It's something I've been very adamant about. Like, if it's like going from an A plus to an A. Like, it's still like slightly less, but it doesn't mean it's bad by any means. And so I think the defensive side of the ball is going to be unbelievable, because like we've talked about, that linebacker position does it all. Your pass, your run, you're all over the place, assignments, whatnot. And then if the defensive line's doing their job, that only makes it easier for the linebackers, which then it makes it even easier for the secondary. Yes, the offensive line, excuse me, I guess the whole offensive side of the ball didn't get ranked as highly as I would have liked. Obviously, I think that they're arguably across the board the best team at every single position. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying. I think that they're very good on the offensive side of the ball. I think particularly as far as my projections go. But on the defensive side of the ball, I think what we're looking at is evidence that this could be one of Iowa State's maybe best defensive teams. And the secondary last year was very, very good. So I can't wait to see how it plays out. And now, that being said, Iowa State's going to have to play these games, right? Some of these games are going to be rivalry games. And I am very shocked to see where Iowa State's rivalry games ended up. We're going to talk about that coming up right after this. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's a game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple, and prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. They've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. My personal favorite feature is that you can see your seat before you purchase. I need to see exactly what I am going to be looking at from my seat view. What exactly does the field look like? That peace of mind goes a long way. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. We got to talk about rivalries. I know. We've been talking a lot of rivalries here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, predominantly Farmageddon. And I do think that Farmageddon is one of the greatest rivalries probably in college athletics. It's not one of the most thought about ones, but it is very tight. It is, it's a long historic rivalry. I've seen a lot of Kansas State fans, ever since we started Farmageddon Fridays talking about Kansas KU KSU is more of a big deal to Kansas State fans than Iowa State Kansas State. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we beat the brakes off them in that Snowmageddon a few years ago. I don't know what it is. Abu Sama legacy game, whatever. Doesn't matter. I think it's a really historic, very prevalent, very exciting rivalry game every year. I mean, you want to look at the stakes that were on the line last year, the Ireland game this year. Look what Kansas State did in basketball to Iowa State. Not maybe the nail in the coffin, depending on kind of how you look at it. But that loss at home, I felt like took a lot of wind out of Iowa State's sails. I don't have it up, but I believe that came right on the heels of the Caleb Love shot. So it was like a double whammy. And yes, I know that Iowa State was kind of reeling from that whole situation, but nonetheless, it was just an odd boom, boom, pow. All of a sudden now you just kind of started the derailing, depending on who you ask. And so to say that the Iowa State Kansas State rivalry holds no weight is, I don't think, fair. But if you thought that, you probably wouldn't. Well, I know you're not the only one that thinks that way. So I believe Scott Docterman is the one that did this ranking. The way that this navigates around athletic is kind of difficult. So I believe he's the one that did this ranking. Nonetheless, top 100 rivalries in in college football came out, and Iowa State just was not where I thought they were going to be. I'm going to be completely honest with you. These rivalries were ranked based on 11 principles. I'm going to just say what they are: data, prominence, relevance, trajectory, frequency, proximity, competitiveness, moments, intensity, longevity, and history. A lot of those speak for themselves, but for the most part, data, how many times have they met as ranked opponents? What's a win-loss? Prominence, is it like shown on national television? Relevance, does it matter to the conference or the college football, just kind of landscape if they play every year? Trajectory, is it growing or retracting in importance? Frequency, is this an annual series? I think that actually is a very large part of this, because if it's kind of played intermittently, it doesn't really hold as much weight. Proximity, are they obviously, really close in state? How does that, geographically play out? Competitiveness, is it one that it reads as, is this a series that ebbs and flows, or is it a hammer versus a nail? Are there upsets? And I'll get into that in a second. Moments, where there are games or plays that stand out decades later. Are the games compelling? Intensity, is this a series both fan bases circle when the schedule comes out? Man, I'm just like reading these and I'm just like so shocked constantly at where Iowa State came in on these. Longevity, how many times have they competed against one another? Is this a century-old rivalry or one that was shaped by recent realignment? And finally, history, are these teams longtime members of the same conference? Basically, do they compete for a trophy, and does the game have a nickname? A lot of words, a lot of super technical stuff going on here, which I appreciate. I genuinely, I will say, I'm sounded like I was mocking it a little bit. I'm more so mocking the fact that I literally read all those. I love that this was not just based on like, well, this is what I think. And at its core, that's kind of what this is, but there is at least a structure to it. And so I greatly, greatly appreciate that. Now, that being said, the top 10 here, I'm just going to throw at you. I will say Iowa State is not in the top 10. So keep that in mind. But it gives you a kind of a frame of reference for where Iowa State or how these are ranked. Michigan, Ohio State, 1. Auburn, Alabama, 2. Oklahoma, Texas, 3. Army, Navy, 4. USC, Notre Dame, 5. Nebraska, Oklahoma, 6. Miami, Florida State, 7. Ohio State, Penn State, 8. Florida State, 9. And then Minnesota, Wisconsin at 10. I don't really love a lot of these. I do think that probably the 1, 2, and 4 are probably about right. Oklahoma, Texas, not super sold on that. Nonetheless, it's not really what we're here to talk about. I'm going to give you 2 seconds because there are 2 major rivalries that Iowa State is kind of a part of, at least for the most part. Iowa State and Iowa State, Kansas State. Kind of like I just mentioned, we talked about the Iowa State, Kansas State rivalry. I'm going to give you 2 seconds. Which one do you think is ranked higher on this list? Iowa State or Iowa State, Kansas State? 2001, 2002. Okay, if you said Iowa State, you would be correct. And honestly, that's what I thought as well. I honestly thought that one would probably be ranked higher just because of the in-state rivalry, bad blood. This one to me is absolutely the one that gets circled every single year. I feel like I circle it on the next year's calendar as soon as the clock hits 0. Either Iowa State wins and I'm looking for more, or Iowa State loses and I want revenge immediately. I personally live for this game. This game is the perfect time of year every single year. It's like that first or maybe just before, that kind of fall wind kind of blows into town. It's still maybe a little bit hot, depending on the year. But it really has that vibes of, all right, football season's here. We're going. It's the real deal. I mean, I can't speak highly enough on this game. I'm going to leave it there as far as that goes. I was a little shocked to see it came in at 32. I feel like that was a little low. However, you got to remember, it's not about how I feel about this game. It's like, how does this match up against a bunch of other rivalries? If you want to find this, it is on the Athletics website, which I believe you have to pay to see this. It's a miracle that I happen to have access to this article. Nonetheless, 32 for Iowa State was a little shocking, but not the end of the world. What really shocked me was where Iowa State, Kansas State came in, because I thought I missed it. No, Iowa State, Kansas State came in at 63. 63? Iowa State has all of the heat. It has all of the temperature you could ever ask for, but it is a little bit one-sided, okay? And we're going to go into this more in our final segment here in a few minutes, but Iowa has, for a long time, been better than Iowa State. Not so much recently and definitely not in the future, but for a while there, in the 1920s, Iowa was pretty good, and Iowa State just wasn't on that level yet. So it looks a little bit more lopsided. Iowa State, Kansas State, the record currently is 54, 50, and 4 Iowa State leads by my count here. And they first played in 1917. It's one of the longest, I think the longest running rivalry in college sports, or at least college football, maybe. I don't have that up in front of me. 108 total meetings. Like, this checks every box for me. They've got classic moments. They've got big time games. I was shocked to see it at 63. I'm not saying this is a top 10 rivalry. I was just absolutely blown away. And the reason I bring this up is I genuinely want to know what you guys think. So either put in the comments down below, or tag me or tweet at me at Nick_Marv. Where would you put Iowa State? Where would you put Iowa State, Kansas State? Do you think that Iowa State should be ranked higher than the Farmageddon rivalry? I mean, I guess they both have names, Cyhawk and Farmageddon. I just was very shocked to see them ranked so low, but you got to remember what you're going up against across the entire nation. Nonetheless, 63 felt very, very low. I hinted at it already. We're going to talk a little bit about some Matt Campbell, okay, how good of a coach he is in comparison to obviously previous coaches at Iowa State and the Big 12 as a whole. And we're also going to talk about some more rankings. I didn't want to make that the whole segment, though, because we've done that a lot this offseason. It's coming up right here after this. Let's have some fun here and talk about success on this final segment of Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you guys for listening to this point. Be sure to hit subscribe down below. It's completely free, and your help proving it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Now, the reason we're going to talk kind of about this in general, these two topics being Matt Campbell and his kind of success, and then obviously the rankings of the Big 12, comes from a pair of articles here. One from Deseret News, I believe is how it's pronounced, talking about how Matt Campbell is one of the best coaches in the Big 12, along with Kyle Whittingham. I'm not going to really get into that too much right now. I'm going to start with the rankings by ESPN of the Big 12. And I'm going to make this pretty quick because, like I said, we've done this a ton this offseason. I understand that. I just think it's important that there is a new one out there. We're going to chat about it. I've given my thoughts on why I think this is maybe wrong or right or whatever. Let's just throw this out there and chat about it, and then we'll move on. ESPN has K-State at 1 in the Big 12. Not a super common pick, but I don't think it's a terrible pick. Arizona State at 2, Texas Tech at 3, BYU at 4, TCU at 5, Utah at 6, Iowa State at 7, Baylor at 8. I'm not going to read the rest of them. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll throw up the preseason poll really quickly that Locked On Big 12 hosts voted on. Pretty similar, 1-2 being about the same there. Baylor and Iowa State ranked significantly lower by ESPN here. Utah saw a bump for sure. TCU saw a bump for sure. Texas Tech right on the nose across, comparing the two rankings here. The biggest takeaway I had was, one, Iowa State at 7 feels pretty low. We did a big deep dive on where we think everybody sits, especially with this preseason poll that we did here at Locked On. Why I think Iowa State's probably right about that 4, 5, 6 is getting a little bit wild. But 7 to me felt really, really low. TCU at 5, though, is one that I just – it's hard for me to rank them that high realistically, but I think that's probably closer to where they're going to end up. I do think that TCU is going to be a threat this season. Generally not the case. I don't think very many people traditionally go into a season thinking that TCU is going to be an absolute dominant team, except maybe after their national championship appearance. But the way that game went, I don't think a ton of people were like, okay, yeah, this TCU team is coming back for vengeance. Nonetheless, I think TCU could be at least dangerous this year. So putting them at 5, maybe a little high, but at least giving them their flowers there. BYU at 4, boy. Well, this ranking here says that the Cougars bring back 7 players on offense, including Jake Retzlaff. So this must have been done before Jake Retzlaff basically declared that he is transferring. And I guess I have to take that into account. They're probably going to bump them down a little bit. End of the day, I don't love this list because Iowa State's ranked 7, but I do like that TCU is ranked higher. I do think you should definitely circle that game this upcoming season. I think that's going to be a pivotal game for Iowa State. Not so much for that game itself, but I think that the way I have TCU kind of projected in my own mind, Iowa State it's like a benchmarker game, right? So where does Iowa State square up against that level of team? If they're not as good as I think they're going to be, then it doesn't matter. But I think TCU could be a good game or a good team, and that game will be an indicator of where is Iowa State at. Now, there are plenty of other games like that, and we've talked about this top 5 most important games in the season upcoming. I don't have it up in front of me. You just have to kind of go find it on the YouTubes. It's on there somewhere. But I definitely had TCU in that list. Like obviously BYU or Arizona State on there as well. Kansas State, very good team that Iowa State will be playing. Nonetheless, but the really kind of the trio of K-State, Arizona State, and Texas Tech at the top 3 seems to be a bit of a consensus across a lot of platforms. I'll be very interested to see how the money plays out at Texas Tech. Obviously, a little bit of a different build than Iowa State, a level of team, an Iowa State team that's seen a lot of adversity, and certainly plays kind of like a big old blanket. This is going to be the weirdest analogy ever, but Iowa State, I feel like, plays like a big quilt, like a big old knitted blanket, if you will, versus like a team maybe like Texas Tech could be perceived as playing like a big old bin of, I don't want to say lost and found, but like just mittens and hats and gloves and maybe a pair of snow pants in there. And it's like, okay, yeah, all these things are great, but like, how do they play together versus, a quilt where everything is already woven together very strong? That's the analogy that I would make there. Doesn't mean Texas Tech's going to be bad. It doesn't mean that at all. It just, that's the way I perceive it. And I would like to see how that plays out. Arizona State, a team that's returning a lot of dudes. I'm hoping to get to chat with everybody that Iowa State plays this season, so we'll probably at some point chat with Richie and get his take on the team coming up ahead of this season. Then we'll probably talk with him the week that we play, or I guess Iowa State and Arizona State play. I won't be on the field. Spoiler. Nonetheless, no Scattaboo, but definitely a lot of guys returning. Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson, like we talked about in those Big 12 season media polls, whatever. Very good team. So don't sleep on them. And then Kansas State, you've gotten the rundown with Farmageddon Fridays at how good this Kansas State team could be. To me, it's still Kansas State, and I need to see it. I think Iowa State can get them in Dublin. And that would be a huge win, especially in the head-to-head market. But nonetheless, ESPN, not bad. I personally would have done it a little bit differently, as you can see from our Locked On Big 12 media poll, or I guess preseason poll is what it was. But anyway, not too terrible given TCU their props. All right, let's transition. Let's pivot a little bit for the last few minutes here to talk about Matt Campbell, because I did see that article talking about Matt Campbell being one of the best coaches in the Big 12, and I immediately said, yeah, that's pretty much exactly right. And I think that everyone listening to this would agree, but let's kind of talk about why. It's really statistics and culture, really, is what it comes down to. For one, at statistics level, Iowa State, I believe, had 3 bowl wins prior to Matt Campbell. And he now, in 9 seasons or whatever it is, I believe it's 9, going into his 9th season, has 3 already. So that's pretty good. I feel like, especially in comparison to the history of Iowa State. And then I've got a couple other ones here. Campbell has a 64-51 overall record with Iowa State for a 557 winning percentage. If that was baseball, he'd be in the Hall of Fame for sure. The best winning percentage by a Cyclone coach since the Big Six was formed in 1928. And then the most wins in school history, both overall and in conference games. Feels like that's pretty good, especially when you consider that he started his ISU career with a 1-8 record and has since gone 63-43. So quick math there. It's going to mean he's a little bit better than than that 557. I'm guessing it's closer to like 660. It'd be about, I don't know. I'm not a math major, unfortunately. Nonetheless, Campbell is the only coach in school history to defeat every league team he's faced during the regular season, and to defeat every league team at home and on the road. Now, granted, that only includes teams that Iowa State has faced at both venues, but anyway. Bunch of other stats here. Campbell's 45 league victories, ranked first in school history. I believe I kind of alluded to that. 45 of Iowa State's 89 all-time wins against Big 12 teams. That's over 50% of the wins that Iowa State has garnered against conference opponents came from Matt Campbell. We don't need to dive into many of the other statistics here. To me, what makes him different, obviously these are very good statistics, but what really sets him apart is the culture he's instilled here at Iowa State. And I keep going back to you're not just a number, you're a player, you're a person, you're a human, the developmental program type of mindset. I don't think that there could ever be an argument that Campbell isn't in the top 2 of coaches in the Big 12. I can see a lot of people are starting to get on the Kenny Dillingham bandwagon. Obviously, like I said, Kyle Whittingham, a guy that's talked about for sure. Sataki in there. I just don't see it. I feel like you have, no matter how you slice it, Campbell has to be in that conversation with the top 2. What he's done with a program that, he's not making national championships every year, but based on what he took the program from to what it is now, And the statistics that I'm showing, like over 50% of the conference wins on top of the culture he's built at Iowa State. And I think that that culture is going to carry over very well into the transfer portal era. And we've kind of already seen it do as such up until this point. I don't think there's any arguing that Matt Campbell is one of the top 2 coaches in the Big 12. And in my opinion, at least probably top 7 in the country. Is that ridiculous? I think maybe you could make an argument for top 5. His resume will take a little, it's going to drag him down a little bit there. And I get that. But if you can basically ignore the championships and like the playoff wins and stuff like that, the turnaround of a program and the culture element, I think, puts Campbell in the top 5. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below or at Nick_Marv on Twitter. I read everything. I appreciate every single one of you guys that engages and also that is listening until this point in the episode. You guys are the real ones. If you haven't already, it's completely free to subscribe down below. Helps prove that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Cyclone Media Days, I believe, are tomorrow. So we're going to go be chatting about that. Cannot wait to see what those guys have to say about the upcoming season. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.